John Doe versus Exxon Mobil was brought on behalf of 11 Indonesian villagers who alleged that they or their family members were either tortured, killed, or kidnapped by Indonesian soldiers who were providing security for Exxon Mobil's facilities in Indonesia. It's like the classic David and Goliath. We represented 11 Indonesian villagers, most of whom had never left their rural area of Aceh, Indonesia. And they were living in this kind of very rural, bucolic setting, and Exxon discovered natural gas and oil. And, so Exxon moved in and developed these facilities to extract the natural gas, and they expanded. And as they were doing that, there was a civil war going on in Aceh, an independence war. And so Exxon, to protect its facilities, contracted with units of the Indonesian military to protect its operations. And then those soldiers kidnapped, killed, and tortured our clients' relatives. For example, one of our clients, had just given birth. She was home with her newborn baby, and her husband disappeared. And she didn't know where he had gone. He was missing for 2 or 3 days, and he came home with his hand hacked off and one of his eyes gouged out. And so there's just case after case like that involving the soldiers from the Exxon facilities. At that time, Exxon was the largest and most profitable company in the world. It's like 11 destitute rural villagers who hadn't, been to secondary school against the world's largest corporation. So the ATS is the Alien Tort Statute. It was passed in the first Judiciary Act in 1789, and what it did was allow aliens the right to sue under the law of nations. And at the time we filed the suit, it was thought to be an incredibly powerful tool to enforce human rights norms. And then midway through our lawsuit, the Supreme Court really limited its scope. It said it only applied to conduct in the United States. And our case, of course, was in Indonesia. We had to retool the whole case. And what we landed on was the transitory tort doctrine, which is an ancient legal doctrine that says you can bring suit against a tortfeasor wherever they're found, but you use the law of the place where the tort occurred. So we used Indonesian law. And I think what's easy to overlook, especially by American lawyers, is that every country has laws. And since we filed our case and kind of developed this idea that you could do that, there have been other cases that, actually sped past us because our case took so long. So we got that summary judgment opinion from Judge Lamberth, which was an 86-page opus where he marched through the facts of every single one of our claims and found that Exxon's defenses were meritless. It gave the clients really almost everything that they wanted. It told their whole story about what happened, about how Exxon started in Aceh, about how they knew about the abuses by the Indonesian military, how mass graves had been found near their facilities, and how they kept hiring more and more troops to protect their facilities, even though they knew these abuses were continuing. And he also found that we had enough evidence to go to trial on the fact that they didn't adequately supervise the soldiers that were stationed at their facilities. And then he set the case for trial, and we were getting ready for trial, and then 2 weeks before trial, we settled. So the case was like David and Goliath, not just because of the plaintiffs, but also because our legal team. It was mostly at the beginning me and a whole bunch of human rights fellows. And then later in the case, when things got closer to trial, the firm staffed up with some senior trial attorneys, and we also brought in at the second appeal Paul Hoffman, who is a leading human rights litigator. I think the unfortunate fact is these abuses happen all over the place, and they're just people in America don't hear about them, and they don't really realize the costs of the gas and the oil that they have. And hopefully this settlement, the blockbuster opinion we got from Judge Lamberth and the settlement, send a message to companies that you can't roll the dice that you'll get away with it in a foreign country where you've kind of got a lot of control and there's a weak rule of law and a potentially corrupt judiciary where people aren't going to get access to justice. And you can roll the dice on that, but eventually you will be caught and you will, justice will prevail. And I think these 11 villagers showed that.